This road leading down to Castle El Yehud on the banks of the Jordan River near Jericho is the natural place to begin this week's Roots and Reflections as we drive on what is the farthest approach to Jerusalem's eastern gate. Actually, this is the gateway to the entire Promised Land. It was here that Joshua led the children of Israel across the river into Canaan. As these landmine warning signs indicate, this was a closed military area since 1967, but peace between Israel and Jordan has encouraged touristic development of both sides of the river. We joined a tour group from Singapore at the traditional site of Jesus' baptism. Sometimes one can see Greek Orthodox pilgrims actually immersing special icons of Jesus into the muddy Jordan waters in celebration of the baptism.
But the actual place of baptism is here, between Jericho and the Dead Sea. Why here? I want to remind you that we are not far from Mount Nebo. Mount Nebo is the place where Moses looked over the Promised Land. And we are very close to the place where Elijah ascended to heaven.
According to the book of Joshua, the river waters miraculously piled up to the north of here. Then the priests who bore the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of Jordan, and all Israel crossed over on dry ground until all the people had crossed completely over the Jordan. Following such an event, those ancestors of mine must have danced here at Gilgal, their first toehold in the Promised Land, though they would have employed harps and tambourines and not an accordion like this one played by the Singaporean's bus driver. From here, Joshua's army proceeded to march around Jericho for 7 days, after which the walls came tumbling down. We're at the old city of Jericho, some experts say dating back as far as 9,000 years ago, as we can see the remains of a tower and a wall. Remember the story of Rahab the harlot and how God used her to save those that were with Joshua? Maybe someone's still at home. Hello down there. Hello down there. You can talk the talk, or you can walk the walk, or you can take a cable car up to the Mount of Temptation. Which way tempts you? We opted for the cable car ride up to the Mount of Temptation above Jericho. The Gospel says, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. It's amazing how much biblical history took place within line of sight from this panoramic view. Elijah poured a bowl of salt into the Jericho spring below, healing the waters that had been cursed for centuries. And it was down there that the school of the prophets witnessed the iron axe head floating on the water. Back in Jericho, I do some shopping. This city was always prized for its date palms, luscious fruit, spices, and in particular as the source of balsam, the most valued ointment of antiquity, in demand throughout the known world from Rome to Egypt and Persia. Listen, I know these oranges are the best.
The best orange.
These are the best?
The vitamin C.
And this is pomelo.
Yeah.
Which is like a grapefruit.
Like the grapefruit, like the orange.
But like an orange.
Between the orange and the grapefruit.
So we know that there were springs in Jericho, which made this place an oasis and gave bountiful fruit, even in the days of Elijah. How much is the cinnamon?
Chicken?
Yeah. What else do we have here? Well, I'll take these. Let me take these. Curcum and cinnamon. Okay, so then I'll get those too. Otherwise, we'll run out of money to eat. In New Testament times, Jericho was the second most important city of Herod's kingdom. Here, he had his winter palace. And of course, Jesus passed through Jericho on numerous occasions on his way to Jerusalem. Nearly 2,000 years ago, a man short of stature named Zacchaeus wanted to take a look at Jesus amongst the great crowds. Maybe this tree in Jericho was the sycamore tree that Zacchaeus came down when Jesus said, "Zacchaeus, come on down." I decided to pay a visit to Daud's fruit stand on Jericho's main thoroughfare. On a previous visit with my wife and mother to Jericho, he offered me 10 camels for my mom. Of course, I refused his offer, but I'll still buy some of the best citrus fruit in the world from him.
Offered a few camels
Thank
for
you.
her,
Yeah,
but just
yeah.
not enough.
Yeah, welcome.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, welcome.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. Everything okay?
Yeah, everything's wonderful. Thank
Maybe
you.
taste the orange Jericho. You want to squeeze it for you, fresh orange juice.
For an accurate picture of what's going on in Jericho today, we visited Karen Dunham of Living Bread Ministries. God led her to this place some years ago, and despite persecution, Living Bread is an active church that helps the poor and even has a television program.
Well, I was on my way to Jerusalem, and I met a Catholic priest at the New Gate. And he told me, he said, if you will go to Jericho and feed the people, you can win the city for God. And when he told me that, the Spirit of God gripped me, and off to Jericho I went. So we started church in the refugee camp. We went through many trials. We went through fires. We went through explosions. We had one Bedouin. During the fire, he went home to take a break, and he said he went home, told his whole family about Jesus. They all had Jesus in their hearts, and he came back to the camp and said, my family all loves Jesus now. In the camp, we had a small church, and after the fire, we moved into an Arabian wedding hall, and it is absolutely glorious. The wedding hall will hold up to 600, and it has been packed full many, many times. And what they'll do is the Arabs will come in. Some of them are Christians, some of them are Muslim, but they'll lift their hands to the Lord. They'll tap their heads like this because they want the visitors to come pray for them. We're praying for them. The Lord's healing their babies.
Lord, she came to the altar and she brought her baby. And Lord, I just thank you that she wants a drink of the living waters.
People from all over the city come into the wedding hall, and since we've been in this wedding hall, there has been no persecution. Not a Molotov, not a death threat, because if we just stay there and we don't give up, the glory will come. And our church is an example of the glory of God manifesting.
Okay, they're gonna make a prayer tunnel for you.
What's happened is this is the eastern gate, the doorway to the promised land. And the King of Kings is in the doorway, and he is visiting this city once again. The signs and the wonders and the move of grace that's happening, it's flooding the city. We even had the governor who, when I first come and tried to give out little gospel tracts, I mean, they spoke about me in the mosque. They wanted us out of the city or dead. Now, the governor called me into the city, and he said, we had a meeting with all the political officials. And this was not quite a year ago. And he said, we've decided if you want to give away Bibles, if you want to give away booklets, it's not evangelism. And the Lord spoke to me, and he said they just invited the Word of God into the city.
We've just come up from the lowest place on earth. The Dead Sea is minus 420 meters or 1,300 feet below sea level, making Jericho the lowest city in the world.
Oh, we're above sea level. We just came from the area of the Dead Sea in Jericho. I can breathe again.